Hi, welcome back to Meraki Unboxed. For the last episode and the last time in 2021, it's awesome to have you back with us once again. My name's Simon Thompson, host of the show, and we really are very grateful for your participation as a listener on this podcast. This is an exciting episode. I've really been looking forward to this one because we have brought together some very illustrious members of the Meraki community, and we're going to have a fun conversation with them. Very shortly, we're going to look back on 2021 and look forward to what we have to look forward to in 2022 as well. So before we dive into that, just a quick reminder, we run this podcast every couple of weeks, although I am going to take a little bit of a break over the holidays. I hope you'll understand, but we'll be back and every 2 weeks in the new year. And we do love to try and get some participation on this podcast as well. We have had many great customers, technology partners, and just really fantastic members of the Meraki community as well, joining us, as well as employees. And so a lot of great content that we've created up till now. And I have said this before, but I think it's worth repeating. A lot of that content is not all that time sensitive. So I think there's some great value to be found in the archive for the Meraki Unboxed podcast. So do please go back and have a look through the list of episodes. We can almost guarantee that if you're in the world of technology, there's going to be something in there that you're going to appreciate. The last thing I'm going to say before I bring our guests in is that we are going to have a special hello and holiday message from our Chief Operating Officer, Denise Thomas, which will run at the end of this episode. So stay tuned for that. But before we get to all of that stuff, I want to bring in our guests for today. So let's see. Open up your mics, everybody. And let's start off with Meredith, who runs the Meraki community. Meredith, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Simon. That's correct. My name is Meredith, and I'm the community manager for the Meraki community. And I have been around Meraki since, I think, like 3 years now, coming up on 3 years.
Time flies.
Time sure flies. Crazy time.
It has, and I'm sure we're going to get to that in a few moments' time.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go round the room, and I'm going to do this in the order of what I've got written down on my list here. So no particular order, but Esteban, why don't you kick us off?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Esteban. I am in Florida, and I am the IT director at St. Bonaventure Catholic School and Church. We're outside Fort Lauderdale. And we are a part of the Archdiocese of Miami, and we are an elementary school. We go from the little ones, about 2-year-olds, we call them pre-K2, all the way through 8th grade. And we became Meraki customers in 2019. We started with the MV line with the cameras. And this year, we migrated all of our network infrastructure to Meraki. So we implemented Meraki switches and access points. A little asterisk, not all of it, because our gateway is still a Juniper box, but we're looking to change that as well when that contract is up. So we're very happy with Meraki. I've been in the community probably since before buying the cameras, because with our key vendors, and I consider Meraki our number one key vendor.
Nice.
Everything depends on it, right? So I usually join the user forum for those vendors, because I find that in addition to tech support access, the user-to-user community ends up being extremely helpful. And that has been my experience, of course, with Meraki. So I'm a frequent visitor. I'm not an expert by any means. I am low on the totem pole in terms of expertise, but I try to contribute where I can, and I'm mostly a learner in the community. So I'm grateful to be here, and again, thank you to everybody who's joining the podcast. And whether I met you online or haven't met you online, we may have exchanged threads or something. It's good to put some names and some faces with this. So,
thank you very much for that. I have to stress to anybody listening that we're not paying our guests. This is they're all here completely voluntarily. That was a fantastic pitch for the community. I love that concept. I mean, and I totally agree with that as well. I mean, what you're into in life, I mean, we all want to share that, and we want to share it with other like-minded people. And so that works, and there's no reason why it wouldn't work in the professional world as well. So that's a great story, and thank you for supporting the community.
And that's an important mention, and correct. I mean, we're all here because we love Meraki, and sometimes people will ask me, like, I've done a couple of webinars with Meraki sales and things like that, and my answer is always, The more Meraki I talk, the better user I become of Meraki. So every opportunity I get to, listen to Meraki or talk to somebody about Meraki, I'll learn something that will help me support our users. So again, Meraki being our network infrastructure, and as a school, we rely, of course, on any business relies on the Wi-Fi, of course, but having our students depend on this for day-to-day connectivity. Again, Meraki is at the top of that list for us. So every opportunity I get to learn, it's good to participate.
Awesome. Thank you a lot for that, Esteban. Let's move it on to Charles. Charles, how are you doing today?
Yeah, good, thank you. I'm the group IT director for a company now known as Metropolitan Gaming. We were part of the Caesars Entertainment Group, but in July this year we were sold off, so we're now our very own entity. So, so I guess we can say, seeing as they weren't using much Meraki, that we've got a much higher percentage of Meraki now than we used to as a company. So
what are you using?
So we've got something of everything other than the MDM solution, the SM. So we started originally on the wireless side. That was with a member of my team who isn't with the company anymore, and we did some of that, which he primarily did. Then when he left, I took over, fixed it, and then we moved on. And we then wanted a big inter-country SD-WAN solution. So we chose Meraki MX for that. And that's been 100% reliable across multiple connections across multiple years now. So we're very happy with that. We then started moving into the switch side, initially at the edge, but we've actually done one of our data centers. We now use Meraki as the core, which was quite a big step for us because we were coming from traditional Cisco cores, where, of course, there's an awful lot more you can do, but as we found out, it doesn't mean you should do.
Right.
So Meraki actually had the right feature set for what we wanted there. And we've recently ordered Meraki switches to replace our main data center core. So clearly we must be quite happy.
Wow, it does sound that way.
So we then added on some cameras and finally some sensors. So I think we've pretty much got a bit of everything.
You can tell, ladies and gentlemen, that we have some serious enthusiasts with us here today. So thank you very much, Charles. So our next guest, we're recording this, let's see, it's 9 o'clock-ish in the morning on the west coast of the USA. But we have a very international audience today. Charles is over in the UK, and our next guest is all the way down in New Zealand. So Philip, welcome to the podcast. What time is it there?
It's around 6 a.m. here, so I'm trying to just stifle back the yawns a little bit at the moment, but I'll do my best.
Welcome.
So my name's Philip, and I work for a New Zealand Cisco partner. I think I've been using Meraki Kit for maybe 7 years now. I know that because we've had quite a few of the 5-year license renewals pop up and go around, and it always surprises me how quickly they come around again.
Yes.
I pretty much work with Meraki like all day, every day. It's just the one product suite that I work on. We pretty much have one of every sort of Meraki product family member, at least one. So we have a fairly extensive lab of things that we can use to try out or play or test things on. I participate in the community maybe 5 or 6 days a week. Mm-hmm. It's just sort of part of my morning routine. I normally put about a half an hour in the morning before the phones start ringing.
Very wise. Yes, know that feeling. Those quiet moments in the morning are super precious. Thanks a lot for joining us, Philip, especially at this time of day. And it's, of course, the next day. It's already the weekend over there, so even better, even more generous that you're giving up some of your Saturday for us. Ali, welcome to the podcast. Tell us where you are and all about your world.
Hello, Simon. Thanks for having me. My name is Ali Imran. I am the head of product at Boundless Digital. So we are an ecosystem partner to Meraki. If you've been listening to this podcast, you'll know Simon's had on quite a few and tries to give them the attention. So if you would have actually asked me about a year ago what Meraki is, I wouldn't have known. And I only started working exactly about a year ago with Meraki. And I actually used this podcast. So every morning before work, during breakfast, I would listen to Simon talk to somebody. And it was a great way to just learn about all things Meraki from every angle, just because... not to mention every angle of the ecosystem partner.
Very good.
But really was an accident. But just because you cover all aspects of Meraki, and it was a great way to learn. So for anyone who's new, I would really recommend it. And so I got into the community pretty much immediately since you mentioned it. And initially was purely a source of learning for me. Just started to stay on there and see the kind of problems people are having. But now I'm really humbled to be in this room with you guys because obviously I consider some of you to be all-stars and very, very knowledgeable with Meraki. So since then, I've been able to help out, not just learn, give a few solutions here and there as my knowledge has increased. Although it's hard to beat some of these people, such as Philip, to the solutions. It seems like you only have a few minutes before Philip drops in with the answer. But happy to be here.
Fantastic.
Oh, I just want to make sure you've got a challenge, something to strive for.
We all need that. All right, thank you. And last but absolutely not least, we have Ralston. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Simon. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for having me. I am the assistant network administrator for the Legal Aid Society in New York. Fairly new to Meraki. We've just adopted using the Meraki ecosystem last year. We started off with the MRs, specifically the MRs 42, and then we moved on to upgrading our switch infrastructure because we love the Meraki so much. And we are on our second phase of implementing more Meraki access points throughout our organization. I've joined the community because it's been my go-to for anything. Me being so new to networking and Meraki, basically, the community has been worked wonders for me. I've also seen Philip on the forum as well. He's helped me out a few times. So yeah.
I really love that about the community. I mean, that's the very essence of it, right? Meredith smiling, and I know that for good reason, right? That's why we created this thing, and it's so cool when we actually get members of the community helping each other out. Especially, we all have different levels of experience, and those of us who've been in the game for a long time, it feels good to give back and to share some of that knowledge and experience with others as well. So, thanks, Ralston. And where are you based? Did you say? I can't remember.
We are based in Manhattan, New York.
Manhattan, New York. So we really do have quite a spread on this podcast. And Ali, I forgot to ask you, where are you based? Did you say?
In Paris.
Paris.
France. I think I mentioned.
You did mention. Okay. All right. I'm losing it. It's Friday. What can I say? I'm ready for the holidays. Okay, so I wrote down a few questions that I thought would be fun to throw around as a conversation. I mean, 2021, my goodness, what a year, and on top of 2020 as well. So it's not been easy, and I think those of us at Meraki, I mean, we haven't seen the inside of the office for 18 months plus at this point, and it's kind of crazy. But I know the experience has been different everywhere. So, I don't necessarily just care about the pandemic, but I am interested, obviously, in hearing what your experience has been like, working from home and, dealing with the challenges that we've all had staying connected this year. Anybody want to have a go?
I would say for us, the industry that we're in, as in the casino sector, in the UK, we were closed for best part of a year. And so forget about working from home. Working at all was quite a privilege. I think as a company, the government in the UK, the government had a scheme called furlough, where they would pay 80% of the wages for people who couldn't work because their company was closed or they had to shield and things like this. And it saved our company, which was probably, that's not an understatement. And coming back, we reopened in kind of May of this year. So the first few months of the year were very much 2020 kind of year, really right. Still.
Rinse and repeat.
And it was only, yeah, exactly, just an extended 2020, And it was only when we reopened in the sort of early summer that we actually started to get back to any sort of normal life. And the thing that was the most bizarre is some of us who had been actually working all through the shutdown, keeping systems alive. I think most of us who are on this call would probably be one of those people where even if everything's down, you still need somebody to make sure things are secured and running, We were kind of getting back up to speed with dealing with other human beings and things like that. But a lot of other people had most of a year getting not all of their pay, but a reasonable amount of pay for being at home, doing whatever it is they wanted to do. And it was a real challenge getting people back into even things like, what is my username? Not my password. What's my username?
Wow. That's a pretty extreme example, actually.
Yeah. And you can't blame them. You think if you're not doing something for a year, they would come in, they'd look at the screen, and you could just see people thinking, I don't know where to begin. Mm-hmm. It's and we're obviously by now we're very much back in the swing of things. But it took probably a good 3 months to get people warmed back up to normal life. When that they had a whole year of an interrupted career and interrupted relationships. It's amazing, really.
Yeah, really, really an extreme example there. Ralston, were you trying to jump in there?
I can agree with what Charles was saying because we've just now reopened our offices to let the public in and us staff in. And the issue that we see come up all the time is, hey, what's my username and password? How do I? What's Control Alt Delete? I don't remember. It's just getting back to normalcy with the employees again. Being away for so long, it's just and readjusting to how things are now. Mm-hmm. We've seen it come up every day. We get support tickets about that issue most of the time.
It's an ever-present reality right now. Philip.
Yeah, for me, this was the year of online collaboration, constant video calls and online meetings, forgetting to unmute yourself, trying to remind other people to unmute themselves because they've been talking for a while, or they thought they'd been participating for the last minute, but then realized no one heard them. I found the mobile phone just doesn't seem to be used for phone calls so much these days now. And the traditional, it's just now a little computer. And the traditional phones has sort of just gone, and online collaboration tools has replaced it all.
Mm. Yes, that's definitely true. I think we've seen. Well, I mean, thank goodness for those tools because they really have come to the fore. I mean, we're all very familiar with staring at our screens and looking at our colleagues in 2 dimensions. It's maybe not preference, but it's been the reality for many of us. Esteban, what's it been like for you?
It's for us, 2021 was the interesting year in the sense that it's the year we decided to migrate to Meraki. So we undertook, I don't know if it was for better or for worse, through the pandemic. We saw the opportunity to say, why don't we do this in summer 2021? And last academic year, so for us here in most of the U.S., it's August through June or August through May. We were maybe at 50% capacity or so. We had some students in school. We had some students at home. And that number fluctuated, so it wasn't constant, right? So 1 week we might have half of our capacity, but the next week we were maybe at 40% or maybe at 60%. So we said, you know what, expecting that in August we're going to be at 100% capacity. That's sort of what we were seeing was going to happen as we were, in April, May of 2021, preparing for August of this year. We said, let's do it. So this summer we undertook that project, and we have 20 switches and we have 43 access points through our campus. So we took that project, and again, it sounds like a paid advertisement. I really promise you that it isn't. Mm-hmm. What a blessing it's been to be fully on Meraki now. I mean, other than maybe a small hiccup, I haven't had an access point fail. I haven't had a Wi-Fi issue with a student. I haven't had a switch issue. And again, that was the highlight for me this year was migrating to the infrastructure to Meraki. Again, we were already with the cameras, so I already knew the benefits of the dashboard. I already had benefits from Meraki, but the network infrastructure for us was a major project this summer, and again, it went flawlessly for us. Again, other than, you're missing a screw on a switch that on the rack, let's find one, or where did we put the power cord so we could connect it? Those things that are extremely trivial, we haven't had issues. So we went from a 4-cylinder engine to a I don't know. Is it good to say a Tesla? Is that a good comparison? Maybe not. Engine battery fire. So maybe that's not a good analogy. We went from 4 cylinders to a 12-cylinder, but it's electric, so it doesn't consume as much gas. So
that's great.
Quite happy. That's probably the worst analogy I could ever pick. But again, it was a big project, and it's so far it's been extremely successful with it. So, and then in terms of the whole pandemic, it's at some point it's now an old subject, right? It's like, okay, how much longer are we going to keep talking about it? But between the press, between technology, between the community forums and everywhere, when you talk to people, it is bound to come up. Somebody's going to bring up the subject of the pandemic, just like we are right now. But for the most part, with all the precaution that we still need to take, I want to say, it's behind us. There's no need to talk about that anymore as an issue. It's considered part of the normal operation now, and then just it's one more issue to deal with. But it's no longer don't treat it as an exception or as a major event. Again, it was. I don't want to minimize the importance and the impact of it. But at some point, we have to move on and say, you know what? It's the pandemic. It happened. It's happening. But change the subject and give me something else.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think the reality is it's going to be here. It is just a thing now. So we all have to make that adjustment, and I guess we'll all kind of reach that sort of mental state at some point. Right? Ali, I wanted to bring you in. I kind of saved you to last because part of what you're doing, of course, is related to physical spaces, and so I'm sure that there's some stories for you for 2021 as well.
Actually, fortunately, I was able to go into work pretty much the whole year, so didn't have to work from home. I'm very grateful for that. It's just interesting how the pandemic has kind of accelerated this transition. We were eventually going to have all of us to working online. Perhaps a lot of the international projects that we work on, if the pandemic wasn't there or didn't come around, we would have had to travel for them. But that idea of just like traveling for a few meetings just seems laughable now, as in why on earth would you ever do that, Yeah. And so, but we used to do it all the time. It was so normal for us, and so that's been a good transition, in my opinion. Something that you can look at as positive in all that's happened. And yeah, just to second Esteban, I'm also quite sick of talking about it. Within Meraki specifically, it's just that obviously because of the supply chain shortage as well, alongside this pandemic, things have really slowed down. The way we work, a lot of our business depends on new Meraki projects happening and generally things moving. So when things aren't moving, people aren't using Meraki that much. They're certainly not looking to expand. They're certainly not looking to change their operations in times like these. So it is an interesting time for us in terms of business. But thankfully, we have gotten through it. And the second half of the year has been very positive. So it's been good, but challenging.
Good to hear. Well, we'll return to some of that as well. And Meredith, I wanted to bring you in as well, of course, to just to tell us about how you've seen things and how and the community in 2021, because I'm quite sure that stuff's been happening there.
Yeah, I'd say that the community kind of took this year as a self-improvement year, 2021. So we spent a lot of time kind of taking a look at our homepage, for example. We hadn't really made any updates to it since the community started in 2017, and so we kind of thought about it a lot and realized that we had added some really new cool spaces that you couldn't really immediately see when you're looking at the homepage. So we did a bit of a reorganization there so we could feature not just the technical product boards, but also highlight the Learning Hub, which is where all of our trainings live. For anyone else who's looking for some self-improvement, go take some trainings. Also, the projects gallery we launched, and we wanted to be able to kind of feature that. Just a super cool space where community members can share their Meraki projects. Some of them super straightforward, some of them completely out of the box. Also, the feature announcements board, we wanted to highlight that. It's a great place to stay up to date, on Meraki products and all of their new features. And of course, we couldn't forget to highlight the Meraki Unboxed podcast. So with that rearrangement, we feel really good about now, kind of having a clear view as soon as you land on the homepage of what our offerings look like.
Yeah.
And then in general, in other parts of the community, we've been trying to zhuzh things up a little, make it a little crispier looking. We added some indented threading a couple weeks back, which has been on my list of needs for the community for a very long time. So now it's a lot easier to follow a conversation.
Wow, there's plenty going on, and in fact, I think we've spilled inadvertently into the next thing that was on my list, which is around sort of projects that everyone's been working on this year. Has anyone else got any kind of good installation or interesting IT projects that they've been working on that they'd like to highlight?
I have a one that I've felt that made me feel pretty happy about a month ago. So in Meraki land, you can send network alerts to collaboration tools like Slack, and Cisco's collaboration tool, but Microsoft Teams was missing, and because everyone has really taken to online collaboration tools this year because of the COVID, it's for a lot of people, it's almost replacing email for a lot of sort of common person-to-person communications. So being able to get alerts about your network and your collaboration tool is quite handy. And the Meraki API team earlier this year released a new API, so you could use this language called Liquid to write new integrations. And so I wrote one for Microsoft Teams, and then I had it officially accepted into the Meraki GitHub repository, so then it was publicly available. And then about a month ago, I had the Meraki dashboard engineering team contacting me to say that they decided to incorporate it directly into the dashboard. Wow. So now the little bit of code I've written is now actually in the dashboard for everyone to use. And so if they have Microsoft Teams, you can now get your network alerts just straight into a channel in your collaboration tool. So that was like a little high five moment for me.
Nice work. Wow, I feel like we should be giving you a round of applause. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
That sounds awesome.
Very nice. What else has been going on out there?
Well, I think, one of the things that I found is over this year, the biggest challenge with getting all these people back to work, other than reminding them of their name and things like that, and that goes back to, because our usernames are actually your first name space your second name. So if you forget your username, we just say, "What's your name?" And they say, "No, I need my username." You're like, "It's your name." Did you not get that? Never mind. But the biggest challenge that we found this year, once we got over that, was with everybody working from home. People at home have often quite shockingly bad Wi-Fi installs, and trying to debug various people's consumer grade mesh installs it was a massive challenge, but I think everybody in our team now has become an expert at the general solution, which is we'll send you a long cable.
Right. Can't beat that wired connection.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, honestly, when you see people on the community sometimes complaining about throughput of Meraki mesh, which I think is perfectly decent, but that it might not be the full bandwidth of the AP, because of course at most it's going to be probably half of it. You compare that to some of these consumer grade meshes where, honestly, I mean, they really should not be on sale. They are so bad. It's terrible. But anyway, that's my biggest challenge probably of this year.
Yeah, and I think that's why, I mean, I can't resist throwing in a little pitch here. Of course, that's why we've had so much interest from a lot of organizations on remote work solutions for trying to solve some of that, because if you in many cases you've had the whole family at home, and the impacts for your bandwidth can be quite negative in some cases, with some of the very sort of high powered streaming technologies that are available nowadays. So that's definitely an interesting one for sure. Ralston, I mean, you mentioned you're sort of relatively new to Meraki. I mean, what kind of projects have you been getting into? Remind us, and how have you found them? How have you found getting into the Meraki world?
One of the projects that we started back in, I'd say March 2020. I think it was just when COVID was starting and everything was actually shutting down. We were scrambling to get these upgrades going because we were moving from Cisco Catalyst switches and upgrading to the MXs and the MS switches. The entire network infrastructure needed a drastic upgrade, and unfortunately, it's basically myself and my manager that run the networking department, and my manager came down with COVID, and he's been out since then. So it was all left up to me, and I was fairly new to the, I had just gotten promoted to the networking position. Mm-hmm. So the project was totally left up to me to handle. But with the help of the Meraki forum, attending webinars, speaking with a bunch of representatives, we were able to, move in the right direction with Meraki. And I've got to say, I love the dashboard. It makes things so much easier. Everything is exactly where I need it to be. And yeah, I mean, especially for me as I'm new to networking myself. So it's a great learning experience for me.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Because I think with networking, the protocols are all pretty standard. They haven't really changed a huge amount over many years. So I mean, once you've learned that stuff, then it's pretty easy to sort of take that to different vendor solutions. And I think the dashboard definitely is a very welcoming environment for anybody who's getting their feet wet with networking for the first time. And that actually leads me on to the next thing I was going to talk about, because you really there, Ralston, you're highlighting some new skills that you've been developing as you've been getting into the world of networking. And that was one of my other questions. What kind of new things have people been learning this year? I mean, Philip, you had this fantastic story around the APIs, which was definitely an interesting one, and that's been a huge area of development for us. Of course, is getting the Meraki technology generally just beefed up on the API side. I think we're in good shape at this point. But any other good stories around skill developments this year?
I just completed my DevNet Associate course at developer.cisco.com. I think it's on that portal recently. So that was sort of probably a couple of months worth of study for me, and hopefully I'll sit I plan to sit the exam sort of by mid-January. So so I've just decided to try and get an additional Cisco qualification in that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a good one. That's definitely where the puck is going, it seems, increasingly. So not a bad move. Anyone else?
Just to add, this is Esteban. Sorry. For those of you listening that are in the education field, whether you are a teacher or supporting a school, or you're a vendor and you have education clients, This is not specific to Meraki, but in the learning skills and helping users. In the education field, especially for teachers, there's a thing called Apple Teacher Certification, and there's a Google Educator certification. Answering the question, personally, I got both of those this year. And I don't know if I'm highlighting something or if I'm doing the opposite, but they're pretty easy to get. And my message being, if you are in the education field and, you have those teachers that are, or those, even if you're not a teacher, if you're a staff member, even in IT and you're supporting teachers, getting both of those, it's not that difficult an endeavor. And, some teachers like to have that status and being able to show that in their signature or being able to talk about it. And, they'll probably learn some new skills in terms of using Google Apps and using Apple apps as well. So both of those are available for those that are looking into, again, another technology certification specific to the education field.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's all good, right? It's all related.
Yeah, it all adds to the portfolio, correct? It's education is one of those things that you never stop learning. So anything you can learn new, it's useful at some point. So
yeah. Ali, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to share. So when I came into this world, I had a pretty weak networking background, but a pretty strong programming background. And part of my job entailed writing scripts pretty much immediately. And Meraki is really facilitated when it comes to working with the APIs. It's really quite easy for me, someone coming from a Python background, for example. But most of the people who want to leverage the APIs are often in the opposite boat, where they're very, very strong with the networking, but often have absolutely no idea how to get started on programming. So over the course of these months, I became quite experienced with it. And a lot of the solutions I was able to give on the community were also in regards to the APIs. And so we actually decided to make a little course. So I made like a intro to programming, but specifically in the context of the Meraki APIs course. And so now almost 200 people have taken that. So quite a gratifying experience being able to help people out in that sense, and was a big learning experience for me as well, being a teacher, because obviously I'm quite young. So certainly helping out network engineers with learning their programming, people who often think that it's going to be too difficult.
Yes.
Obviously, when you start thinking about coding and you're pretty late on in your career, it seems like a big giant that you have to overcome. But I really tried to make it as easy as possible and do that in the context of Meraki. But yeah, for me, the intro to the world of networking has been very easy, as it's only been through the dashboard. So the old days of CLIs and etc. are folk stories for me.
It's funny.
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
I've got a question for you, Ali. Is your main developer tool Google, or is that just me?
No. I'm sorry. I don't understand the question.
Oh, sorry. I just use Google when I'm trying to solve developer problems, and I was just wondering if your main developer tool was Google as well, or that was just me trying to use Google to find the pre-built solutions that just copy and paste the snippet.
Absolutely. I mean, everything I can't find is something you have to Google, right? And that's something everybody does. That's the number one development skill, actually. How good you can Google, right?
Right. It's the most valuable life skill, it seems.
And I think actually, yeah, Ali, on that, I totally agree, because people say, well, how is it you know how to do so many things? Like, we use Google. We just know what question to put into Google or what words to put in.
You are the
Yeah, exactly. And that is all it is. It's you can't possibly know the full detail of everything that we've dealt with over the last decade or whatever, any of us probably, and therefore you remember bits of it and you remember how to find the other bits.
Yep. I'm very grateful to the technology, I will say that. But it was interesting you mentioned about the CLI there, Ali. I think when I started in networking, it was all CLI. And I remember when I joined Meraki that we were having some fun trying to convince a lot of network engineers to break away from the CLI habit in the first place, right? And now we're coming full circle, because now we're back on a screen with some text in front of us, and it's quite interesting. So if there's anyone out there who still needs that CLI fix, sounds like Ali's course is the way to go. It's getting into some of that programming stuff. That's awesome. I'm going to just quickly say that I told our guests that we'd be recording for like 30 to 40 minutes. We're now 40 minutes in, and there's no way we're anywhere near finished. So we're just going to keep rolling because this is definitely a fun conversation. Let's turn things to the community. I'm just curious to hear about your experiences on the community. We've already heard a couple of stories around the use of that. How has the community actually been helpful to you, and what would you say to anyone else who's not using it yet, who's in the Meraki family?
I'd say that I first used the community when I took over looking at the state of our Meraki wireless and how to fix it. And a certain very helpful person who's now in this community answered lots of questions for me. So thanks, Philip. And we got stuff working a lot better. And I think the key thing about the Meraki community, I think, compared with any other vendors community that I've used, at least, is that people don't generally complain. They might point out that something isn't working properly, but they don't rant on about it.
Let's not mention it's 390.
Yeah. Apart from the 390 is a Cisco non-Meraki product, so we'll exclude that, won't we? And generally, people actually come there for help. You don't get any kind of negative vibe. And particularly over the pandemic, and even now when, we're only going into the office at the moment, maybe one day a week, something like that. The Meraki community is actually a really helpful social thing, because there are people that even if, you haven't met them in real life, you've had enough conversations with them that you actually get a positive feeling when you're seeing them discuss something, even if you're not actually part of that conversation. You're just looking at what some other people are discussing because maybe it will help you in the future. And I think that's, I think it's really good.
Yeah, it's definitely been. It is definitely like a pay it forward type of environment, and it's funny that Philip's name keeps coming up all the time. It's like the regular superstar. So if you haven't met Philip yet, there's one reason to join the community straight away.
I was one of the sort of early members of the community. I didn't join on the day dot, but I think I joined within the first month or two. So I've been there for the entire community's life pretty much.
Ralston, you mentioned that it had been useful to you in getting started as well. What kind of stuff have you learned through that? Where have you found the help?
Oh, I can't even begin where to start. From asking what does this device do or how to hook it up when you initially get it to test a device. I've probably asked every question in the book, and our all-star here, Philip, has helped me out several amounts of times, and it's for the community. It's an invaluable resource for me. I'm always learning something every day in the community. I don't think there's been a day that I haven't logged into the community just to check out, what's going on there. Check out the podcast, of course. I just have the podcast on in the background sometimes throughout the day. If for those people who are now adopting Meraki and you haven't been on the Meraki community forum, I definitely say you need to be on there. It's like a hub of geniuses that you can ask any type of question, no matter no matter the subject matter or how ridiculous you think the question is. There's no ridiculous question, because sometimes I type a question, I'm like, oh, they must think I'm so stupid asking this question, but the responses that I get back is so helpful. And it's and not only that, there's contests that you can enter to get swag. I've gotten Meraki socks before.
Let's not forget the swag.
Can't forget the swag.
Yeah, and I got it in the mail. I was like, whoa, this is awesome. So yeah, the community is great. I love it.
I love that you owned up around sort of asking those what feel like stupid questions. Normally, if you have a stupid question on your mind, somebody else has the same stupid question. They're just not brave enough to ask it. So Good for you for just doing that and leaning into using the community fully. Ali, I from a tech partner perspective, how have you found things?
Yeah, I just want to touch a little bit on what was just said before. We are really motivating people to come onto the community and ask their stupid questions, but feel free to search if the question has been asked before, because often you find that people are asking the same questions and taking advantage of how nice everybody is, because they'll still answer them with excruciating detail. But yeah, for us, the community is always really helpful to discover actually the kind of problems that people are generally having, see patterns, because our whole goal here is to build solutions on top of what Meraki already has, but really solve some of the common challenges that can be solved via the APIs. So it's a great place of learning for me in this sense as well. And yeah, in terms of All-Stars, I feel like there's about 10 people that contribute a lot, and then there's the rest of us that contribute a little bit. Mm-hmm. But generally, the Meraki community has just a very positive vibe, as Charles was saying. Other communities with vendors particularly seem like a war zone sometimes between customers and the owners, right? It's just all complaints. I have this problem, I have this problem. But over here, it seems like there's a lot of synergy whenever new product updates are posted. Just a lot of collaboration going on between the folks at Meraki and the folks between the community. And I feel like this community has managed to stay pretty authentic and not watered down so much, as in everybody who's on there actually seems to care. So that's something you can really appreciate.
Wow. Meredith, you must be loving this.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about the general positive attitude. The All-Stars you mentioned, we have two of them on this call, Philip and Charles. Charles, you may know as CMR on the community. But that's an earned and an elected position. You don't just have to be the best and the smartest in the community, but also, like, we're not picking the grumpiest. These folks are also the most helpful, and I think their positivity and willingness to take the time with people really sets a tone for the rest of the community. And I think it's so important to it's such an important balance to maintain, and I think the All-Stars are such a great model for that.
Right, absolutely.
Just while we're there too, I would like to do a little call out to Meredith and thank her as the manager of the community. Sometimes when things work so well, it's hard to see all the time and effort that people behind the scenes put in to make that happen. But it's because they've put that time in that it has just ran and evolved and developed. So thank you for that, Meredith. It's much appreciated, all that time you've put in.
Oh, stop.
You guys.
I second that.
You
guys. I second that. Great.
While I'm just talking about this too, I'd just like to make one other sort of call out too. The community doesn't just consist of people or end users of Meraki or people who consume the technology. You often get a lot of other Meraki staff coming onto the community. I'm sure there's probably a lot of lurkers as well. And so you often get people who work in different product teams and stuff like that participating and commenting, and then there'll be this other larger, the iceberg. You can't see most of it because it's below the water. You'll get this larger swath of employees who just follow the community and get the vibe and the feedback from coming in. So simply just talking about problems that you're experiencing and stuff does help enrich the product, because it's sort of like a covert channel back into the team, into where their users or customers are experiencing difficulties or need more help, or maybe the documentation needs to be clarified or updated, or those kinds of things. And these are like little invisible things that you don't really see happening, but they do.
Yeah, that's so true. And I would say, feedback back into an organization or a corporation can feel challenging. And I can assure you that we're listening across multiple different channels. I think the standard disclaimer applies here, which is that obviously we can't respond to absolutely everything, and not everybody is going to get what it is that they're looking for. But we'd certainly do our best on that front. So please do keep sharing on there, and keep sharing your ideas, because we do our best to make sure we're consuming as much of that information and feedback. It's so valuable to us. All right, let's turn things to 2022. I think it's time to start looking forward. And I'm curious to hear, what plans you've got for 2022, what projects you've got coming up, what you're looking forward to the most. Who would like to take that one?
Oh, I'll kick it off. I have trouble thinking that far in advance, to be honest, most of the time. But some of the things that sort of really come into my mind is, so Meraki's going to be releasing a lot of its IPv6 support, the next generation of the what glues the internet together, and I'm really looking forward to that newer technology being generally available. That'll be something I'll definitely want to have a play with. So yeah, that's one thing I'm looking forward to.
For us here in the education field again, we don't have anything major with Meraki for 2022 because the next step for us is to look at the MX line, but I have to finish my current contract with the other vendor, and that will take us into 2023. But I want to throw out another comment for those in the education field or those companies that qualify for, at least in the U.S., education for the E-Rate program. E-Rate is a government program that will help you fund certain technology projects at your organization. It's very education oriented, but some other organizations can apply as well. And switches and access points qualify for E-Rate, and so does the cabling if necessary. So that's how we did part of our funding for our Meraki implementation this year was through E-Rate. So if you Google that, again, those that are interested, look it up. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to private message with anybody in that area. Just look me up in the community forum, and we can connect there. But for next year, our project is upgrading all of our UPS units, basically our batteries for switches, etc. And we're doing that through E-Rate as well. So basically, to get to the bottom of it is, do not ignore E-Rate if you qualify for it. It's quote unquote free money that is available to your organization. If you go through the paperwork and you dot all the I's and you cross all the T's, there's a very good chance that that you can qualify for funding, and it can cover 40% or more of your purchase. So something that may be unattainable before can be attainable now with that funding. So we use it every year on our fiber line. Our internet is E-Rate sponsor, and we've done it with a few projects. So
yeah,
that's what's on tap for me for 2022.
That sounds fun. And it's not even just networking, which is also cool. It's also thinking about the whole infrastructure piece.
Correct.
Probably just Mirth mentioning that E-Rate is a US thing. So yes. It isn't a global thing, but of course, I mean, the general point is totally valid. I mean, there's always government funding for a lot of IT projects, especially where they're sort of more public focused. So definitely always a good idea to be aware of whatever's available there. And 2022, I mean, I'm also thinking we moved into this space around smart spaces, and we're increasingly thinking about sensors and how we can use all of those. Anybody got a project on that one coming up?
Well, we are looking at that. That is one product that I am looking for. We have one open-close sensor active now, and it's actually quite useful. Because with the open close, whether you put it on a server rack, whether you put it on a room, depending on where you need, when you least expect it, you'll get your alert saying, "Hey, somebody just opened that door." And what is nice about it, I have it tied to a camera, so when that open alert goes off, in the message that I get in my alert on my text or email, I have a snapshot of the photo. So even without opening, I quickly see, oh, that's such and such. I don't need to look into it, or I don't know who that is, or the camera didn't catch the person who did it. So then I can open the alert to grab the actual video recording. But it's a nice feature. And then we're also looking at the temperature sensor, and we're looking at the water sensor. So that is something that we're looking at for summer 2022. And I don't know for those of you that are listening, if you notice in your dashboard, everybody now has 5 free licenses. So if you check your license on your dashboard, every customer has 5 MT licenses now enabled on their account. And maybe we need to edit this in case not everybody has them. And Meraki, somebody at Meraki right now is saying, he said something that's incorrect. Hopefully I'm correct and everybody has them. And if not, talk to your salesperson. I'm sure they can get you 5 free licenses. You need to buy the hardware, but licensing is part of it. So that part of it at least is already included to get you started. So that's something we're looking at for summer 22. And again, we're using the open close now, which works quite nicely.
Well, we should just mention it's 2021, and that 5 free licenses applies to this year. If you're watching this podcast, listen to this podcast in 5 years' time, that may not still be there.
Yes,
but as of this point in time, it is.
Better be quick.
Yeah, and on those sensors, we rolled out during the pandemic a whole load of the temperature sensors, because we had venues that were closed that were saving money and switching off the air conditioning with some unintended consequences, shall we say. So we quickly identified where things might be switched off by accident or deliberately. And we put temperature sensors in there and we set alarms to go with them. And we've probably saved about £100,000 worth of equipment purely through a couple of £100 sensors that have triggered and sent a thing through saying, hey, this has gone over a threshold temperature, which obviously we set low enough to give ourselves time to respond. And then we've had people go to those rooms with portable air conditioners, or go and reset fuses, or open doors and things to save equipment. So they're the most recent addition that I've had to the Meraki family in our setup, and probably one of the most useful. So yeah, they are good, and they do seem. So I've not professionally calibrated them. I know, Philip, I think you had one early one that seemed to be slightly out, but the ones that we've got deployed, we've compared them with other reasonably expensive sensors, and the humidity and temperature readings are certainly for a server room, they are within a degree and within 5% humidity. So I'd say they are definitely very fit for purpose, and they're not expensive either. So even when you do pay.
That's a good observation, Charles, what you mentioned on the temperature and how it detected a potential temperature issue with the equipment that's in that room, and that the sensors, to me, a little bit like insurance. It's one of those things that if everything's going well, you never hear about it, right? You don't get alerts, you don't get alarms, because everything's functioning as it should. And that's sort of like the case with insurance. Hopefully you don't need car insurance. But when that temperature goes off because somebody turned the AC off to save some money, all of a sudden your equipment is running 10, 20, 30% over the threshold, it's good to have that insurance to alert you. So that's a good observation on how it caught it prevented potential damage to the hardware that was purchased. So
I'll give you another use case we've been playing with, which is one I'm not sure Meraki is sort of. We've been playing with putting the temperature sensors into office environments. Would probably apply to school, and using them for basically monitoring for employee comfort. So like if you have a working environment, or probably a school environment, and it's either quite hot or quite cold, so people aren't comfortable, they're not going to be working at their best, right? And the other thing, without trying to use any country specific terms, trying to create easier ways for companies to comply with employee safety requirements around the temperature and humidity environments inside of offices, because they record it beautifully in the dashboard. So it creates an easy way that you could use to defend an employee's case around comfort levels or discomfort in offices.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, I'm imagining, Ali, that you'll be interested in all of this conversation as well, because of course this is fairly pertinent to your type of work, right? And so what's happening with Boundless in 2022?
Yeah, we're actually entering a next phase of growth. So because the Meraki APIs have just been like really booming as of late, particularly these last few months, they've been adding so much, So obviously the more APIs there are, the more things we can do. And so the types of solutions that we were building around Meraki are really growing in terms of variety, from like monitoring visibility, etc., to like automation, access control. So yeah, we've got a lot of different interesting projects going on, which is why we're having to bring on more engineers, just grow our team, simply because there's such a broad spectrum of the kind of things that you can do now with the APIs. And so, yeah, just looking forward to it and excited for what's to come.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Ralston, have you got any projects coming up?
Oh yeah, we've trying to finish up our wireless access point deployment, and we might be trying to implement SD-WAN. So that's on the table for 2022. We've got 20 sites that we need to get this rolled out to.
Oh, that will be definitely an interesting project. WAN stuff is always interesting.
Looking forward to learning a lot.
And Royston, I would actually say on that, we as when we implemented SD-WAN across about 9 sites a few years ago now with Meraki, the thing that amazed me is we were just prepared for so many issues and having to do all sorts of optimization and tweaking, and we kind of plugged everything in and it worked. And we were thinking, what do we do now? What have we missed? It's I would go into it, and I think, obviously be prepared, but we were amazed how easily what I would say was a reasonably complex SD-WAN setup, where we used VPN concentrators, we had high availability, we had multiple links, we were attaching to switch stacks, we had various access control lists, and we had some local breakout and all sorts of things like that. And it just worked. It's kind of when you install Meraki, in a positive way, it's almost disappointing how easy it is when you're used to, when you're used to kind of command line switches and writing a load of stuff in, and it doesn't all copy across because you pasted too much in at once. So you have to go back through and make sure that everything's actually gone in, and it's kind of, you sort of do a few clicks or use the APIs, and it just works.
I'd like to just build on that sentiment briefly. I so often go into customer networks, and if the network's been there for 10 years and it's been iteratively added to, like each year or every couple of years, there's some new requirement has happened, and they tend to build to a stage where, although they function, they have quite a high level of complexity because if all sorts of configuration has been done to bolt on this new component into the system, and then you look at the overall intent of it, and you just realize, as you blow the whole lot away and put Meraki in, that all the complexity disappears, and it goes from needing a lot of attention to just not having to be touched, and it's simple and everyone can see what's happening again.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's the strangest feeling in the world to just plug it in and it works, especially when it comes to networking equipment, because you're always preparing in your mind what's going to go wrong. What do I have to do if this breaks or something? But with Meraki, it just works, like Charles said.
I will just say that as a marketer, we probably won't use the phrase "it's almost disappointing how easy it is" in our marketing. Don't expect that to see that on our homepage next year. Meredith, the community, what's coming up?
The community, well, we've got our annual gnome-themed December contest to look forward to. So stay tuned over the next couple of weeks for some antics from our gnomes. And then in the coming year, we've got a few pretty exciting developments / improvements to look forward to, of which I'm not at liberty to disclose any further information.
No roadmap. No roadmap.
Yeah, no roadmap. But stay tuned for some cool stuff ahead.
Okay.
More swag.
And always, of course, more swag.
When the community was a lot smaller, the known competitions used to be much easier. This is before your time, but I used to just download the entire community site, and then when they ran the competition, I'd just download it again and just run a tool to tell me what pages had changed.
Now, see, we have to be tricky to avoid your antics.
It's too big to download now easily. It would take
Yeah.
too long.
Exactly.
Giving away all the secrets here. Okay, I'm going to move on to the last question that I had to throw around this group, because it is now coming up to the end of the year. I cannot believe it. Like it's gone by in a flash this year. I literally can remember sitting down and recording the words "Welcome to the new year," and it's like the third year of the podcast, and let's get this rolling. And here we are wrapping it up already. So my goodness. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's felt that way. And I'm looking forward very much, of course, as I'm sure everyone is, to the holidays and having some downtime over the holidays. I was just going to ask everybody, what is your favorite holiday tradition? What do you like to do at this time of year?
In New Zealand, it's summer over Christmas.
Of course.
And so I quite like the outdoors. I love going to the beach and walking and enjoying the sunshine and doing tramps and sometimes I'll pick a theme and I'll go and visit all the waterfalls in the area, things like that. I like doing those kinds of things.
That sounds very wholesome. And yes, a little bit jealous of that weather, even though we don't do too badly in California.
I much more prefer the summer myself, but during the winter months in New York, when it's not freezing cold outside, I love to go ice skating.
Nice.
For me here in Florida, it's in addition to the typical family traditions, etc. that we do, the winter break is a perfect time to catch up on any IT projects that you're not able to run during the school year. Being at school, once we start in August, whatever wasn't done in the summer, it sort of gets put on hold until the next year. But then you have that 2-week window. To fix anything, remount something, implement something that wasn't done in the summer. So it's a busy time for us in a winter break. In trying to do a few projects. I have 5 cameras to install that were not done in the summer, so they've been sitting for 3 months now. So that's what's coming up after eating and celebrating.
It's unstoppable. It's amazing.
It never stops, right?
Charles, how about you? What's your favorite thing at this time of year?
Well, as casinos never sleep, as you may know from the various movies, we actually are closed for one day at this time of year. We are closed on Christmas Day, so we won't get any fault tickets. We won't get any. Well, we might get a load of alerts from the dashboard, but hey, we probably won't. It's actually the one day you can truly rest, because you know that there is not going to be anything happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's rather nice.
Yeah, that's the peace and quiet is the part that's we all get to share at this time of year, right?
I do look forward to the office being a ghost town, definitely.
I think there's a lot of offices that have been ghost towns the whole time, right? Exactly.
Well, believe it or not, we've actually been going in.
Yep.
And there are lawyers that do have to show up to court and things like that. So,
right, that never sleeps for sure.
Yeah, yep. New York never sleeps.
Ali, how about you?
Guys, I don't want to be the Grinch here, but having grown up in many different places, I'm not really one for the holiday traditions.
Okay.
I suppose it's nice to have some time off, and it's always good to have some time dedicated to family. But in terms of holiday traditions, can't say I have any in my culture.
All right, so it's more Meraki projects, of course.
Oh, I hope so.
We expect to see a huge swath of Python code from you.
It's coming.
All right, Meredith, how about you?
Typically like to, since we don't have much weather in the Bay Area, which normally I'm thrilled about, it's nice to go visit weather somewhere else. So I like to go to Montana, visit with some family, do some snowboarding, and then happily leave the cold and snow behind for my temperate climate home.
Yes, nice to sample these things.
Yeah, exactly. Small doses.
All right. Well, I think it's time we started wrapping this episode up. We're now at an hour and 10 minutes in, so it's been a good run. It's a great fun conversation. I want to really thank our guests for taking time out to join us, especially I think Philip as well for like first thing in the morning on a Saturday. Pretty impressive. And Ali as well. It's and Charles, of course, over in Europe. It's getting late in the day there, so thank you very much for everybody for joining. I mean, it's very clear that the community is alive and well. And I mean, I don't know about all stars, but we've had a group of superstars on this podcast episode to really just share, I mean, the value that's in there. And the community is there for literally for everybody that we work with, the extended Meraki family, as we like to think of it. And as we said, it's a great place to get feedback back in as well. So I'm going to wrap things up here. Thank you all so much for joining the recording, and also, of course, all of you for listening. It has been quite a year this year, and I really am very happy with all the content we've captured on the podcast. I mean, some really great stuff. They're covering multiple different areas of our business, but also, of course, the partners that we work with as well, and customer experiences as well. And remember that this continues into the new year, and I would love to have you involved in some way. So if you would like to submit an idea, I'm super easy to find online. You can find me on Twitter @Meraki Simon is my handle there. Ping me a note if you've got an idea. I'd love to get it shared in there, or put it in the community. I'm in there as well. And so join the community. You can find that. Where is it, Meredith? What's the address?
It's at community.meraki.com.
Wow. There we go.
I was worried you had it bookmarked and wouldn't know that one.
Yeah.
I put her on the spot there.
Yeah.
Yes, Simon's just pretending he joins the community.
I do my best. What's
that URL again?
Okay, all right. Now we've remembered what the URL is. It's time to wrap things up. I'm going to actually hand things over to Denise now, who's going to share a few words with us. But apart from that, thank you very much again for everything in 2021. Thank you for being a Meraki customer. Thank you for listening to this podcast. We'll be back in the new year. And for now, I'm going to hand it over to Denise.
Hi, I'm Denise Thomas, the head of operations at Meraki. And I don't know about you, but this has been another year for the record books for us here as a team. We've continued to think about what it's like to work in a distributed fashion. And for some of us, we've started to come back into the office and coming back into sharing space with each other. We've continued to be in a really interesting supply chain situation, probably something that we hope to not see again for decades to come. And it's also been a time for us to really think about our relationship with our team members. What does it look like to be a great team? What does it look like to be a place where people can build their careers, especially in light of the great reshuffling of talent that's happening right now? And in spite of all of it, we've kept on delivering really great products to the market, and we've continued to deepen our relationship with our customers, and we've continued to have really great conversations on the Meraki Unboxed podcast. We wanted to thank all of you for being committed listeners in 2021, and we look forward to all the conversations and interesting topics we'll get into on the podcast in 2022. In the meantime, from all of us at Meraki, we'd love to wish you happy holidays and safety and prosperity to your families in the years to come.
Thanks, Denise. And that's a wrap for 2021. We'll see you back here in the new year. Take care.